So, hi, it's Rory from counsellingtutor.com, and I'm with Bob Cooke at the Manchester Institute for Psychotherapy. And you're going to discuss, or we're going to talk about couples counselling.
And couples psychotherapy. And I have to be honest, Bob, it's not an area I know a lot about. So, how is it different, apart from the obvious thing that there's two people, not one? How does it differ maybe from individual therapy? Okay, let's say about counsel psychotherapy or couples counselling,
yes.
whichever way you want to look at it. Different theoretical models will have different frameworks of working with couples. So, for example, transaction analysis looks at couples therapy in a certain way, which I'll talk about in a minute. Gestalt psychotherapy will have a certain frame of working with couples, and so on. However, the difference between individual psychotherapy is once you move to a couples therapy, you move into what I call systemic therapy. In other words, once you move outside 1 to 2, we have a system.
Yes.
So there's a series of interlocking transactions between two people. So we've got a systemic approach rather than an individual approach.
Okay, so this is a systems-based idea.
Yeah, there's two people working together,
okay,
playing out games, behavioural patterns, scripts, transaction analysis, which fit together in a system. Okay, so when you see couples, you can either see them together, which is probably the best way because you see a system in front of you. Some people split them off and see one part of the couple to work out what the issue is from their perspective, then the other part from their perspective, and then bring them back together again.
Right.
So you can actually see couples from that perspective, or you can keep them together from the start so you can observe the system.
Sure. How do you work, Bob?
I prefer to work keeping them together so I can see the system in operation in front of me. Sometimes when one part of the couple may be feeling too intimidated, too not safe enough, not secure enough, then I may split them up for a couple of sessions or 3 sessions just to get the perspective. What I'm more likely to do in that system is ask them both to go to individual therapy if they can't talk together in the room, and then come back. But it would be different therapists, not the same therapist.
Sure.
Okay. So let's go back to couples therapy from, let's say, a transaction analysis model, which is what I'm trained in. Okay. When I sit with a couple, the first thing that I'm looking for is how their interlocking life decisions or script fit together. Yeah. So in other words, people pick people who fit into their way of seeing things, their frame of reference, their script, their life plan. They fit them. So Eric Berne talked about the idea of script.
Yes.
And the idea that all of us create a life plan early in life, which they carry on throughout their whole life, which is called script. It's a psychological life plan. They make early decisions about themselves, the others, and the world, which becomes a script which we play out to get what we call a script payoff at the end. Right? So both partners will have a script, and couples find each other to fit into that script. So, when I was 10 or 11, I was into amateur dramatics. Now, I remember one day, small little boy, I was with this friend of mine practicing. I forget what the play was. I think it was Peter Pan. Yeah, I'm sure it was. And I was reading for one script, and I thought he had the same script so that we could bounce off each other. He had another character's script. So when I said one transaction, he was really confused because he had someone else's script.
Oh.
Let's take that to couples therapy, right? Freud really, I think, got it right. We marry our mothers and fathers.
So we're talking about this famed Oedipus and the famed Cassandra, not Cassandra.
Yeah, Cassandra.
Cassandra,
Yeah.
yeah.
Complex.
Yeah.
We marry or we have partners which really resemble our mothers and fathers in some psychological ways, even if we're unaware of it.
Yes, and that makes sense really, wouldn't it? Because for children, their caregivers provide hopefully the emotional nutrition. So it wouldn't be surprising that as we grew up, we would look for that in someone else.
Correct. It provides predictability,
Yes.
stability, a familiar psychological identity, and a script that you can both play out.
Sure.
Now, as I said, if you'd got a partner with a different script than you, there'd be confusion. So you pick people with familiar life plans. Now, I can imagine some of the audience saying, well, you know, my partner was nothing like my father, nothing like my mother. I made sure of that. Or something.
Yes.
Actually, I'm talking about unconscious psychological drives which are often not even in awareness. So, here we go. I look with a couple for how their early script decisions and early life plans fit in together, how they complement each other, and how they sabotage each other getting what they both want in the therapy. The other thing I'm very mindful of couples is contracts. So with a couple, I put a lot of emphasis on what both partners want from the relationship, how both partners might sabotage what they want, and what the goal would be. And the other thing I get is something called a relationship contract. So not only do I get individual contracts, so we've got 2 individual contracts, but I also get a relationship contract, and that is based on what the people are doing that sabotages the relationship.
Yes.
So you've got the relationship up here, and then you've got Mary here and Bob here. So you have an individual contract with Bob about what he wants, you have an individual contract with Mary about what she wants, and then you have a relationship contract about how you want the relationship to be different, and the system all impacts as a whole.
Yes. Yes. So initially you're getting clients to sit in front of you so you can observe their interactions, their transactions, because you are a
Transactional
artist, yeah. And looking at how they interact, and then from then on, you can observe and reflect how they are together, and what
Correct.
may be the triggering points for them falling out or having conflict in the relationship.
Correct. And that's where I start. That's exactly start with contracts.
Yes.
Then I look for the transactions, the behavioural patterns, the games in transaction analysis, the scripts in transaction analysis. And another important concept taken in transaction analysis is strokes with couples. Now, strokes means a unit of social recognition, and all of us needs recognition like oxygen. Now, what happens with couples is they tend to forget to feed the relationship.
Yes.
And, you know, if we don't stroke our partners or recognise our partners or validate what each partner does, then the relationship starts to wither.
Yes.
So I teach them how to give positive recognition to each other, and I teach them how that then allows the relationship to flourish.
Yes. And I was just, as I heard you speak, I was just thinking about, sometimes I teach about the 2 I's that can be very destructive in relationships. Infidelity and indifference.
Indifference is a big one.
Yes. And that is, in my experience, and I'm not a couples counsellor, but certainly in individual clients, it's where at some point there's indifference, and you talk about not stroking or maybe promoting the other.
Absolutely. I mean, indifference is just as much a betrayal of the relationship as having an affair.
Oh, that's interesting. But yes, from an emotional point of view.
From an emotional, they both have the content of abandonment.
Yes.
When I was a kid, the worst school yard game that I often, unfortunately, was the receiver of, was when the bullies sent the schoolboy to Coventry.
Oh yes.
Indifference,
Yes.
ignoring them, lack of recognition.
Yes.
They are the betrayal of the soul.
Yes.
Just as much as any affair.
Yes.
As
Yes.
much as any affair.
Yes.
And it's the lack of positive recognition, the indifference, that often becomes the real destruction of a relationship. So I teach the person the antidote to indifference, which is actually validity, to give a positive recognition, to just attend to the relationship.
Yes. And you make a very good point about attending. Relationships are like anything that needs to grow and flourish. And, you wouldn't leave a plant without sustenance or water or light. No. But it's amazing how many relationships wither because, one or the other haven't put that sustenance in.
That's right.
And that's what happens.
Yeah, Eric Byrne, who was the originator of transaction analysis, talked about this concept of strokes, and he had a name for positive strokes, and they were called warm fuzzies.
Yes.
And he had a name for what we call negative strokes, which are called, or he called them anyway, cold pricklies. And every time there's a cold prickly, the spine psychologically shrivels.
Yes.
And it's the same with the relationship.
Sure.
If the relationship has got a diet of cold pricklies, it will shrivel up and wither away.
Yes.
If it's got a plentifulness of positive recognition, it will thrive.
Sure.
I mean, that's the essence, really, of psychological couple therapy.
Absolutely. So if there's anybody out there watching, Bob, and they're thinking, I wonder if my relationship's worth salvaging, if I get some help, what would you say to that person who's watching thinking, I think we as a couple we need help? What would you say to them?
Pick up the phone. Go to email me, pick up the phone, get an appointment, come and have assessment, and let's get going and putting that relationship on track again. The longer you leave this, the more the relationship suffers from indifference, stagnation, and dies.
Yes. So thank you, Bob, for that. As I say, it's not something I don't do couples therapy, but I don't practice couples therapy, but it's really interesting what you say, and certainly about the indifference and about the not stroking and promoting.
I mean, in the States, premarital therapy is very big.
Really?
In other words, it's that often people book themselves in couples for what I'm going to call here premarital therapy. In other words, looking at the strengths, the potentials, the perceived areas of difficulty in the relationship before they get married. So all those issues could be wrinkled out and sorted out, and if they're not the right people, then they can move on, and if they are, they can celebrate those relationships and strengthen those relationships. And if I had a sort of magic wand, I'd say, let's look at this whole area of premarital therapy. It's like when when Jessica was born, my daughter, I wish I'd had some counselling or therapy about how to be a father.
Oh, that's a whole different video.
I know, but before I got married, I would have liked to have had some, getting together with my wife, perhaps just to look at some of the things that were wonderful and may have been worth exploring. So I know it's another bag, but
I'm sure there'll be lots of people watching going, Yes. I totally
Oh
agree
no.
with you. Oh no.
Oh no.
So I hope you found this video useful, and we'll put the MI Pitt, Manchester Chief of Psychotherapy, contact details in the bar below. And as always, thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you. Bye bye.